Good evening, everyone. Let me start with today's topics. That is called. Today I'll be discussing two topics. That is ethics in international relations and funding, and I'll be discussing about quality of service delivery, utilization of public funds, and challenges to corruption. Right? I'll be discussing these things. So these are the topics that I thought to cover today. Ethics in international relations, corruption, and utility in public service. First thing first, is my screen visible and is my voice audible to everyone? Yes, good. Right. Ethics in international relations. Now, what is the concept of ethics in international relations? Why the so-called ethics should be present, or how ethics in international relations are important? Now, what is ethics in international relations? And what are the benefits of ethics in international relations? Now, international relations are those relations that a state will be having with another state. Right? In dealing with one state, if you are dealing with another state, what are the relations that you have? That is called international relations. Now, one thing that we have to understand clearly is whenever a state is dealing with another state in international relations, they deal only with one purpose, that is called the national interest purpose. Apart from national interest, there is nothing beyond which a states think. If I am entering into some discussion with USA, if India is entering with some discussion with USA, then India will think in India's national interest perspective. USA will look at USA's national interest perspective. So the first and foremost goal of international relations is to enhance the national interest of a country. I'll tell you what is national interest in a while. To enhance the national interest in a country. Now this is the objective of national interest, or this is the objective of international relations. In such a scenario, the difficulty is in promoting this national interest. How far should you give value to your the so-called importance to your values or to ethics? How far you should give importance to your ethics in international relations, at the same time how you can promote national interest by having values. This is one ethical dilemma in international relations. I hope you got the point. Whenever a country is dealing with another country, the biggest dilemma that the country will be having is how to promote national interest, at the same time how to maintain ethical values in our relations. This is the biggest dilemma. If you want to promote national interest, at one point of time, it might require that you might have to compromise on your ethics, or you might compromise on your values, right? At that point of time, how to balance them. So ethics in international relations deals about how to balance your national interest along with the values in ethics, right? So ethics in international relations has one objective, that is to overcome this dilemma, or how we can resolve this conflict of national interest and values, right? That is what ethics in international relations is. Let's look at this. Ethics in international relations refers to application of morality and principles in solving the ethical dilemmas. What is that ethical dilemma? National interest versus ethical values in international relations. So ethics in international relations is nothing but how you can apply the morality or the principles in solving this dilemma. That is what ethics in international relations is. Now, what are the basic issues that you face in international relations? How to reconcile one's national interest along with values in which you believe, right? This is the biggest dilemma. Look at today's India's dilemma in international relations, right? Taliban has captured power in Afghanistan. Now our value system is to be abide by peace, not to join hands with some terror organizations, right? This is our goal. This is our prime objective that we had. But today, Afghanistan is one bordering state with India. When you have such a border, and this Afghanistan is captured by Taliban, who are not promoting egalitarian society, who are not promoting some democratic society. India as a democratic country, it has always upheld democratic values. And if some country is not following these democratic values, India used to oppose that. Now the biggest ethical dilemma for the country is whether to recognize Taliban or whether not to recognize. If you recognize, until what extent you have to have the collaboration with Taliban. If you don't recognize, then what is going to be the problem? On one side, our value system says that you have to be abide by democratic values, you have to be far away from terror organizations, you have to be promoting peace in the society or peace in the region, right? At that point of time, how you can balance your national interests and how you can get along with your values. This is the biggest dilemma. This is one best example. Some believe in, now we have to answer that. How ethics in international relations is going to answer this question, we'll discuss. Some believe in commitment to universal values, just like our Jawaharlal Nehru. He used to believe in universal values like human resources, human rights, non-violence, non-interference, no support to terrorist organizations. Look at the Panchashil doctrine. Mutual respect to each other's territorial integrity, right? You will not interfere into others' domestic affairs, right? Resolving disputes with peace and amicable solutions. So these are Panchashil doctrine, which was laid by Prime Minister Pandit Nehru, right? They are very universal values. You can apply them at any place. For example, Pandit Nehru has taken the issue of Jammu and Kashmir to United Nations organization with a thought that yes, we have to be abide by human rights values, we have to be abide by global rules. But United Nations organization, rather than solving the problem, it kept that in some turmoil. That is another story. But it is the leader who is going to determine the values of the country in international relations. Some believe universal values should be there, whereas some believe that universal values don't work. Rather, you have to be quite pragmatic in your approach. For example, Sardar Patel, he used to say that don't go to United Nations organization. Just be pragmatic. Let us wage a war with Pakistan and send those guys back into Pakistan, and let us also occupy some land in Pakistan. That was the idea of Sardar Patel, unlike our Pandit Nehru. So some have universal values, some have some realistic values. Realistic values means they believe that in realism or in reality, what works, we will do that. That is the thing. So the biggest dilemma is this dilemma: human rights versus national security. Myanmar is one example which is going in turmoil. In this case, ethics comes in picture and tries to solve the dilemma. So what I have said so far, international relations is one relation where a country will be having having some relations with other countries. The relations are based on securing the national interest. In order to secure national interest, there always exists one dilemma: whether you have to give importance to your national security or whether you have to give importance to your long-held beliefs or values. In such a system, ethics is going to help you. For example, human rights issues in Myanmar and national security issues. That is one example. The second example is that India is having a dilemma whether to go with Taliban or whether you have to be away from Taliban. So that is the thing. So first, what is national interest? It reflects the goals and objectives of a nation in military sphere, in cultural sphere, in economical sphere. If you are securing your interest on the military front, cultural front, and economic front, then that is called national security, national interest, right? Some sources of ethics. So you have to follow some ethics in international relations. What are the sources? United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, Geneva Convention on Humanitarian Treatment in War, Refugee Convention in 1951, Paris Climate Deal at UNFCCC, Global Commons, Common but Differentiated Responsibilities, IPR rights, ethics in global trade. Next, multiple laws and treaties to address ethical issues relating to four global commons. You have four global commons, right? Political science, you have a separate topic on it. For example, high seas and the atmosphere, outer space, Antarctica, right? Environment related concepts. Now, why sources of ethics? Now, whenever you want to take a decision or if something is discussed on case study in international relations, you can think about these sources and you can write an answer saying that as per these conventions, you have to be following some values. So that is why it was given. These are formal sources, right? There are some informal sources. What are those informal sources? Customs followed by countries at international level. For example, India used to follow peace, right? Now, so during peace, in the international relations, our culture is that we have to be abide by peace. So these are the customs that they are following. Importance of ethics in international relations. They have given Mahabharata, but what I prefer is don't write mythological examples too much. Go with practical examples. Importance of ethics in international relations. What are the importance? Ethics helps in avoiding clashes, ego clashes, and ideological clashes. For example, if you want to solve a Kashmir issue, if both countries, India and Pakistan, is ethical in their dialogue, then definitely they can solve the issue. But rather than an ethical issue, they consider it as a matter of pride, right? Hence, they are unable to solve the issue. So, Cold War should have been solved with some ethical values, universal values. If they have given importance to universal values, then Cold War wouldn't have occurred. But both the countries, USA and USSR, couldn't sustain for that ethical values. They wanted to be very pragmatic in their approach. Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq wars, victims of lack of ethics, right? If they ask a question on what are the advantages of ethics in international relations, you can write these examples. Ethics aim at peaceful world, respect for all, and equality. It helps us to resolve some conflicts such as terrorism, refugee crisis, territorial disputes. It guides in international efforts in environment, ozone depletion, global warming. These are environmental issues. Next, you can have collective security against some aggressor state by imposing sanctions, military actions, etc., so that the root state is going to be controlled. Next, it helps in avoiding or overcoming some climate changes, and it also helps us to collaborate during natural disasters. For example, pandemic. Traffic in human beings can be reduced. So whenever you are writing, think on these lines. Advantages of ethics in international relations. How you can think about the global problems. What are the global problems today? One is environment, terrorism, human trafficking, women trafficking, child labor, migration, right? Environment, terrorism, women issues. Next one is in the environment, think about all the environmental aspects which are common to the globe, right? And then you can think about unemployment, free trade, trade barriers, unemployment, inequality across the countries. So you can think about these things. And then nuclear weapons. For all these answers, for all these problems, you have one solution, that is called ethics in international relations. So they say that you follow ethics in international relations, you are going to solve all these problems, but in reality, they don't work, to be frank, right? But as they have given in syllabus, what are the advantages of ethics in international relations? You have to write ethics in international relations helps this, helps this, helps this in these dimensions. However, there are some theories which says that I'll discuss about these theories. In 1961, they said about Berlin Bloc, East Germany and West Germany, because there was no ethics in international relations, right? Trump adapted America First approach in 2017. This discouraged the free trade, high tariffs, and there was trade war across the globe. For this, you can write as examples, right? That is why they have given, if you want to write examples. Now, the thing is, how you can solve ethical dilemmas in international relations. Right? I said ethical dilemmas are there. What are those ethical dilemmas? Whether you have to give importance to your ethics or whether you have to give importance to the so-called national interest. You can solve that by following three approaches. Again, there are three theories in IR through which they say that you can solve or resolve the ethical issues. Again, whenever they ask a question, whether you want to wage a war or whether you want to be silent, go as per the theories. Realist theory in international relations, realism. Machiavelli said, king should not bother about the rules. He should bother about the welfare of his subjects, right? A prince, whatever the prince will do, there is no morality for the prince. The only morality for the prince is to uphold the goodness of the individual and his subjects, right? Morality doesn't exist for a king. So realism says the same principle. If you want to secure your national interest, there is nothing wrong or there is nothing called values. The only value is that you should give importance is your national interest. So you can do anything to secure your national interest. That is the biggest value that you have to give importance, right? They say that apart from national interest, there is nothing more in international relations. So do anything which secures national interest, and then that is ethical. Just like our consequentialism, right? So realists say this. As per realist theory, they try to resolve the dispute, whether you have to give importance to national interest or whether you have to give importance to ethics. They say that ethics is in international relations is something which promotes your national interest. Hence, ethics becomes subordinate to your national interest. So do anything which secures your national interest. If you want to wage a war against Pakistan, go and wage. Because if you want to secure national interest, then that is the thing. War at that point of time is not a crime. If you want to go and make relations with Taliban, if you think that it is going to have some strong relations with India, then go and make it, because you are looking at the national interest perspective. Their democratic values doesn't work. That is their culture. Leave it. Democratic values you implement in your country, not in the international relations. So they say that. However, idealists, there is something called idealists, like just like Jawaharlal Nehru. What they say, peace should be given priority. Human rights should be given priority. Global justice should be given priority. So they say that these should be the means for achieving national interest. They say that give importance to values, then automatically national interest will be secured. So as per idealists, they say that give importance to peace every time, then national interest will get automatically secured. But in that, this is quite idealist, which means it works only in books, not on the paper, right? Not on the reality. So the best approach is principled realism. Principled realism. What do you mean by principled realism? This is hardcore realism, right? Go and kill anyone if you want to secure national interest. But principled realism is some middle path of the above two. According to this, foreign policy involves the pursuit of interests based on power as well as moral values. Include both values along with the national interests. For example, India dealing with Pakistan. First, it has given a chance for discussions. Narendra Modi went to Nawaz Sharif's house and he has made a discussion. But so this is the first try they did. They wanted to have discussion. But again, Pakistan has attacked on the Pathankot airbase and they had attacked on Uri attack, right? In retaliation, what we did, we went and we have struck Pakistan in the form of surgical strikes. So this is one type of principled realism. Yes, we will be calm until and unless we will try. If they listen, let them listen. If they don't listen, then we will show our power, right? This is what is known as principled realism. So this is some moderate approach where you can solve the dilemma. And again, they have given something called consequentialism. Actions are based on, you can write the same thing. Whether an action in international relations is correct or not, go to the dimensions of ethics that we discussed. Consequentialism, non-consequentialism, Next one is virtue-based ethics, right? Again, they have discussed the same thing. Nuclear deterrence. See, end-based approach, consequentialism. We discussed this, whether nuclear weapons are important or not. As per consequentialists, they say that nuclear weapons are very important because they act as a deterrence. Nuclear weapons deter. If you have nuclear weapons, then the enemy will be deterred to attack your country. Hence, nuclear weapons act as a force to deter the other fellow from attacking you. Hence, nuclear weapons are good as per realists. Now, so if India is trying to have nuclear weapons, then that is completely fine as per this doctrine. Okay. By this you are promoting nuclear weapons, but still this is completely fine because it is securing the national interest as per the consequentialists. This is also as per the realist traditions. So what is this rule-based approach, deontological approach? This is based on means, right? Follow good means, then you are going to get good ends. In 1921-22, US provided famine relief to Soviet Union, even as US was trying to weaken Soviet regime. So during war also, they provided some famine relief. So this is one thing that can be lauded because they wanted the enemy to be faced in the war, not to be dying of hunger, right? This is one thing. In 1990s, US relied on this approach to justify food aid to North Korea, even though it is regarded as an enemy state, right? This is like even enemies can show some respect, right? So they did it. It's good. Tri-dimensional ethics. This approach that seeks to overcome in-based and rule-based decision by incorporating both the approaches. How you incorporate? Incorporate by having the pragmatic realism approach, principled realism. అక్కడ రాసినవే మళ్ళీ రాశారు ఇక్కడ. రియలిజం అంటే కాన్సిక్వెన్సెస్, idealism ante rule based approach, and then you have one more thing called principled realism, which is known as tri-dimensional ethics. So you can just think about it. Elements of ethics in international relations. Human rights, I said yes, human rights should be given importance. Multilateralism, prosperity, environmentalism should be given importance. You achieve global commons, right? Achieve global justice, right? And then solve all the global problems that you have, then that is going to be helpful. Ethical challenges, issues in IR. What are the present day ethical challenges? Now neo-colonialism is one concept, right? Neo-colonialism by doing debt trap. This is one problem of ethics in challenges in international relations. What is this neo-colonialism? You will be giving more aid. China will be giving more aid to Latin American countries, African countries, but slowly they will make them to fall into the debt trap. These countries, they cannot go and repay the amount. As a result, forever they will be under the control of China, right? Several countries providing aid, they are actually promoting neo-colonialism in Africa, right? They are falling into the war. Their aid is falling into the hands of warlords, money not reaching the poor. The only thing is it is going to create colonialism again. Issue of human rights violations are present across the globe. Migration is another issue that you see, right? Next, the so-called nationalist feelings, patriotism, that is called my country first, is one feeling that you are seeing across the globe today, right? The rightist attitude. Next one is environmental, is one big problem, guided by narrow national interest, not defined the national interest. So you can write all these things. So this is called ethics in international relations. What do you mean by ethics in international relations? I said, first know what is international relations. International relations is one nation going and relating with the other nations. During this interaction with the other nations, they face a dilemma whether to follow national interest or whether to follow the morality. Now, in order to resolve these disputes, of ethical dilemma, you have ethics in international relations. Whether international relations whether national interest should be given priority or ethics should be given priority. In order to answer this question, ethics in international relations is going to help. How it is going to help? Again, through theory based. One theory says that go for consequences. That is called realism. Realism says that national interest should be given priority irrespective of your values. Whatever the values that uphold the national interest, then they are called ethical. Now, the other thing is, it says that uphold the values, then automatically national interest is going to survive. This is called idealism, or non, you call this as deontological approach. The next one is a principled realism, where you follow first ethics. If it is not working, then be hardcore realist. A combination of these two are going to help you. I said some examples. Now, this is the second thing. Now, what are the best sources of how to think? What are the best sources of international ethics? Human rights, United Nations human rights. You can use our Panchashil doctrine, right? You can use all the Paris climate deal agreements. So you can use UN conventions rights. Then you can deal about all the systems that we discussed. So these are the sources of ethics. You can write them whenever you are writing an answer. After that, next one is what is the advantages of ethics in international relations? I said it helps you to overcome the global problems. And what are the present day problems? In the economical front, you have the problem of debt trap. In the economical front, again, there is an issue of IPR rights, right? There is an issue of trade wars, right? And then you have in the internal security, you have terrorism, right? Role of state actors, non-state actors in terrorism, right? And then you can write on the political front, there is no importance to global order, rather individual states are following. There are people are breaking, or countries are breaking well-established norms. For example, USA has come out of the so-called World Health Organization. China is abandoning or abandoned this. Some countries have abandoned UNESCO, right? You can write all those examples. Just think subject-wise approach here. Then you can find some answers. So this is what ethics in international relations is. I hope you got a fair idea about what I'm speaking. Now moving on, the other problems are terrorism. Again, a global issue. Ethical issues associated with terrorism are, first thing is radicalization. You are brainwashing the people, right? And then people say that there are some good terrorists and there are some bad terrorists. This is one thing. Preserving human rights and life. This is an issue with terrorism. They are using violence to suppress terrorism. Now, terrorism itself is violence. Now, using violence to suppress violence, again, one form of dilemma. So these are the dilemmas there. The second issue is refugee crisis. You can write this, many examples: Rohingya refugees, the refugees of war, the refugees of climate change, the refugees of economy, livelihood, right? You can write all those people. Dalai Lama, so this is the problem. What is this ethical dilemma in refugees? You understood what is ethical dilemma in terrorism. The ethical dilemma in terrorism is terrorists are using violence, state is also using violence, right? Both are violence. Now, refugee crisis. What is the dilemma here? Whether to accept the refugees. If you accept the refugees, your economical capacity will be decreasing. What about your people? Now, this is the biggest dilemma. So, diversion of limited resources and settlement related issues, right? For example, during this Bangladeshi liberation war, many people from Bangladesh entered into India and they have entered into northeastern parts of the country. Northeastern parts such as Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya. Even today, they are saying that we want a separate citizenship because people have immigrated into the country. Now, these have its root causes in this refugee crisis, right? So this is one example. You can write, even today, we are unable to solve the problem of Northeast. Look at the yesterday's dealing. They wanted to remove AFSPA, Armed Forces Special Protection Act. Why that was launched? In order to suppress the Northeast insurgency. Why Northeast insurgency emerged? Northeast insurgency emerged because of this 1972 Bangladeshi liberation war. Right? People came into the country. So refugee crisis is going to create a long-term internal security problem. Hence, whether to accept refugees or whether to not to accept refugees. If you are accepting refugees, it is creating long-term problems. If you are not accepting, then it is against the human values, right? That is the thing that you can write. For example, Dalai Lama, he was a refugee of India, but however, it has hit hard our India-China relationships. So you can write these examples. Next one is the third type of thing is international aid, whether you have to give foreign aid or not. For example, USA has given aid to Pakistan during the Cold War. Pakistan has used it in cultivating the Taliban terrorists, right? And then by 1990s, they realized that Pakistan is misusing it. Pakistan misused it. It is only in 2001 when these Taliban have hit the World Trade Center, then USA realized that okay, Pakistan is acting against us because Taliban are being fed by, are being feeded up by the so-called Pakistan, right? So the first thing is whether you have to give military aid or not. Just like to fight Taliban, USA has given funding to Afghanistani government, but Afghanistan forces couldn't use it properly. Rather, immediately when USA has left out, Taliban captured that within less than 30 days or 32 days, right? So military aid, whether it is helping or not. What if this military aid is going to fall into the hands of Taliban or the terrorists? Now, technical assistance. How this technical assistance is being used. Say, for example, if nuclear technology is being transferred, you have to be quite sure about whether they are going to be used for peaceful purposes or whether it is going to be useful for the non-peaceful purposes. Next, humanitarian assistance. Absolutely, humanitarian assistance has to be given. For example, COVID-19. You have to show that humanitarian assistance. Again, here giving aid should not be coming at some external pressure. Say, for example, India, when you do not have forex reserves, IMF came to help us, but it kept many rules that you have to open up your economy, you have to do this, you have to do that. So there should not be, there should not be any conditions while you are helping for humanitarian assistance, right? Ecological assistance, right? Now, ethical arguments for foreign aid. Helping global justice, it enhances the capacity of locals. Again, technological assistance. How you are giving? Are you giving to uphold or to stop these environmental issues? That is also one thing that you can think about. So many countries are not willing to pass the technological advancements to developing countries or least developed countries because they are not ready to share the technology. Though countries like India, they are asking that you share the technology. You don't need to share us money. Share the technology. We will have our ways of life to control the environment, but they are not sharing. So this is one thing. So if you are doing that things, then it is going to help you. Issues and one more issue is with the global or with the globalization or with the international relations is monoculturalism. For example, America imposing Western democracy wherever it goes, right? It is trying to have bullet or what you call it as gunpoint democracy. This is my way or you are going to be eliminated, right? That is what the thing is. Imposing Western democracy. That is called monoculturalism, right? It is destroying the cultures of others. You can write it. So it is always driven by self-interest. You are not bothered about people of Afghanistan. You are bothered about the land itself. To just have that heart of Central Asia, you have landed in Afghanistan. Now you moved it and you are moving it to South Pacific Ocean. So you can write these examples, right? Again, China is pumping huge money in the form of CPEC to Colombo, to various other countries, just to encircle India. So the intentions here are very bad, right? It is hampering the national security. So you can write all these examples, how profit motives, conditional basis, inference in election process. So what does it mean? Whenever you are writing international relations, think broadly and write. Whenever you are writing about ethics in international relations, think broadly and write, okay, these are the dimensions that I can keep. In order to overcome these problems, okay, I have this dilemma. In order to overcome this, use one theory, realist theory, idealist theory, principled realism, consequentialism, deontologicalism, or the last one, that is called principled realism, will be the best. So you can think on those lines. What are the challenges? I said, what will be the advantages if you follow ethics in international relations? You'll be overcoming these challenges. That's it, right? This is what is ethics in international relations. Let's move to corruption. Now look at this. In the previous year questions, you have certain aspects. You can have information from here also. I hope you have not forgotten this. Strength, peace, and security are considered to be the pillars of international relations. So whenever you are writing strength, peace, and security, consider that ethics is going to have building your national strength. It is going to give global peace, and it is going to add security also, right? The will to power exists, but it should be tamed by rationality and principles of moral duty. Otherwise, everyone become like Hitler and Mussolini, right? This is what you can think on international relations. At the international relations, bilateral relations between most nations are governed by policies of national self-interest without interest to other nations. This is called hardcore realism, right? And it is leading to conflicts between the nations. How can ethical issues can solve them? Ethical issues can solve them because you will be thinking on humanitarian grounds. You will be thinking on all those aspects which will be trying to solve the disputes. You will be thinking on peace rather than on war. Hence, national interest can be aligned with the so-called ethical values. So you can write these type of questions, or you can take some inputs from this and you can think on. So think in these dimensions, then you can write a better answer. Now, challenges of corruption. Look at this corruption. What you have to know, you should know what is the definition of corruption. By heart one definition, right? And then what you should know, definition. What constitutes corruption, and then what are the challenges with corruption? Everyone can write the challenges, right? And how can you solve the problem? How to solve the problem of corruption? I said, first thing is use all the dimensions that I said. At the government front, right? On the upper stage, government side, make all the organs of the government very functioning very effectively, right? Next, make all the watchdogs very vigilant. Then ensure that how to control corruption in the organization. Make that the people are having all the good principles, that is called fundamental values in governance or fundamental values of civil servants. And then make the system itself, that is system itself, very strong. How you can make the system very strong? By increasing transparency, by increasing accountability. Accountability comes with transparency. In order to increase transparency, go for RTI Act, go for Citizens Charter, right? Next one is use some technology in handling the corruption, right? Then you can solve the corruption. So challenges of corruption, what you have to know is what is corruption, know it. What are the parts of corruption, know it. What constitutes corruption? And the third one is what are the challenges with corruption, and fourth one is how to solve the corruption or how to overcome the issues of corruption. That is the thing that you discuss in corruption. Now let me start with this thing.